Thank you, sir, for a very inspiring presidential address and laying down the paradigm shift which is required in the building up a theory of criminology, critical criminology, subaltern criminology. Some of our colleagues already have attempted writing in this direction. Maybe a collaborative effort is required to strengthen an alternative jurisprudence within the criminological thinking. Now I would request this year Kumarappa Reckless Award lecture awardee, Professor Mehrazuddin ji, to come and give the Kumarappa Reckless Award lecture. Professor Mehraj.
Good afternoon to everyone. Professor Pandey, President, Indian Society of Criminology, Professor Rao, Organizing Secretary, Professor Siva Murthy, Chairman, Indian Society of Criminology, my colleagues who are of the dais, Professor Tilakraj, Professor Tiwari, Professor Raghavan, Professor Khan, Professor Chokalingam, Dr. Trivedi, and of course Professor Bakshi and other dignitaries. At the very outset, I am thankful to the Indian Society of Criminology for having granted a prestigious award known as Kumarappa Reckless Award in my favor, which as a student of criminology, I am conscious of the fact I never deserved it at this stage, but I take this opportunity to assure and to ensure my worthy colleagues on the dais, of the dais, that I shall try my best to prove worthy of this prestigious award, Kumarappa Reckless Award of the Indian Society of Criminology. Well, my dear students, delegates to this very conference, we had excellent lectures in the inaugural session by Professor Bakshi, by our chief guest, Honorable Justice Sachar, by Professor Singh, and then now, of course, by Professor Pandey. And it seems there is hardly anything left for me to discuss with you. But I must tell you, when I got a message about this Kumarappa Reckless Award, I was directed that I have to deliver a lecture on this occasion. I was out of country for my some personal reasons, and before leaving the country, Jyoti Singh's case was in my mind. I was out of country for about 20 days and totally cut off from the rest of the world. On my return, I found just today that an ordinance amendment to the criminal law has come into force. Just on first week of February, amendment to the criminal law 2013 ordinance regarding some amendments to the criminal law. Well, my dear friends, as a student of criminology, I am a bit worried. I am worried in the sense that what is our lawmaking process? What factors motivate us while making laws? Well, it is a matter of fact, so far as crimes are concerned, they are on increase. Almost all crimes, especially crimes against women. And from time and again, we have been in a position to enact a number of laws. You may start right from Sati Prevention Act, dowry, so many laws, and then of late Domestic Violence Act 2005 and so many other laws. And then we have been also responsible for bringing amendments to our criminal laws. I will not go to other laws. You take the example of amendments to the CRPC, to law of evidence, and of course the criminal law in 1973. Even as on date, we call it as new CRPC or we call it as amended. A number of changes were introduced. Then again come to 1983, as Professor Upinder Bakshi rightly mentioned, you might have heard about the Mathura rape case. Mathura was the name of a lady. It is not a Mathura railway station. Well, when she was raped, and finally when the case reached to the Honorable Supreme Court set aside on the ground that we have not found, there is no evidence to the effect there are some outward symptoms of rape on the body of Mathura. And on this, our learned professors, including Professor Bakshi, and some activists at that point of time, wrote open letters to the Honorable Chief Justice of India at that point of time, and some changes were introduced that came in the form of perhaps amendment to criminal law 1983. Then again, you might have heard about the Shah Banu's case and the role played by our learned teachers in Delhi, especially Professor Upinder Bakshi, and how that very law was then enacted regarding maintenance of Muslim women. As I said, as a student of criminology, my concern is not that what is going on, rather basic concern is how the laws are enacted. As all of you know, the basic purpose of any criminal justice system is to prevent and control increasing crime trend. And if we have changed law every now and then, have we succeeded in this objective? Perhaps to me, the answer is no. Despite all these laws, despite changes every time, the crime rate shoots up. Recent example of Jyoti Singh's case, when there was a mass demonstration going on in Delhi, just in the adjoining towns of Delhi and in other metropolitan cities of India, identical cases were reported. Even at just in neighborhood Noida, people were on the roads in Delhi. Government was on its heels, and identical rape case took place in Noida, and the police refused to accept the complaint, to lodge the FIR. It is only on the intervention of the people the FIR was lodged in that very Noida murder case. Well, if you go to the historical background in the post-independence era, how the laws have been enacted, you will find, by and large, except in the first 2 decades of our independence, we have been, first 2 or 3 decades of our independence, we have been governed by emotions. We have been rather swayed away by the demonstrations. If you go to any enactment, whether civil or criminal, and if you go through the parliamentary debate regarding the objective clause of that very enactment, you will find for months together there has been a debate in the parliament, in the lawmaking bodies, wherein all pros and cons have been discussed. Whenever there is any doubt regarding any interpretation of any clause of any such laws, well, the standard practice is to refer to the objective under which that very law has been enacted. Well, when the changes were introduced in by virtue of 1983, then again in 2005, then now again in 2013, again the basic question arises, is it in a position to curtail down the tide of crimes against women? As I said, to me the answer is no. Why? As Professor Pandey, in one of his papers, research papers, perhaps entitled as Criminal Justice System or Criminal Justice Anarchy, he has maintained in that very paper that in a system means there is some connectivity between certain units, whatever the system may be. And when we talk of criminal justice system, we have some subdivisions. You may call them as some subcomponents. You have the legislature, you have the executive, maybe in the form of police, then you have the judiciary for the purpose of interpretation. Judiciary, you have again on one side prosecution, on the other side you have the defense. Then it again comes back to the executive for the purpose of what we call implementation, and in the executive, in the fourth level, it may be either corrections or it may be the police for the implementation of the orders of the Honorable Court. Well, have these systems, subsystems rather, of this very criminal justice system failed in the realization of the basic objective of the criminal justice system, that is to prevent and control the increasing crime rate? Well, the crime stats will give you answer to this question, and obviously the answer is no. Now just go to the first one, that is police. Police is the entry point in the criminal justice system. Whatever the laws may be, recently the Supreme Court said there are enough laws to deal with the crimes against women. The only requirement is that of it is implementation. We have to see whether they are implemented in their letter and spirit. Police is the first agency in the criminal justice system. Well, since here we are not going to talk about the accused and the accused rights, because much has been said about that. Now, all of us are conscious and aware about the attitude of the police vis-a-vis victim. Just 3-4 days back, a decision has been given by one of the district judges in Delhi, wherein he has raised a number of questions regarding the functioning of the police. In that very case, the police asked the victim to attend the police station every now and then when the investigation was going on. And then again, victim was, a number of questions were posed to the victim, which caused a lot of harassment, not only to the victim, but the victim's family as well. Well, in such cases, how we can expect that a victim will approach to the police station with her or with his grievances? That is why there is a big void, very big void between the crimes which are actually committed and the crimes which are actually reported. Well, in most of the cases, so far as mindset of the police is concerned, I will not say about it. I will quote the former Director General of Police, Shri Ghosh, who has said, the police has not been yet in a position to change their image. This is true. Even after 65 years or more, they continue with the same mindset as they used to have in the pre-independence era. Whenever an accused approaches them, if he belongs to an affluent family or if he belongs to some influential party, he will get VIP treatment. On the other hand, if a victim approaches to him or her, to the police, well, all the odd questions shall be posed to him or her. And invariably, in most of the cases, complaint or FIR is not accepted. Here, the first blow which comes to the criminal justice system. Then go to the police investigation, which, as per my opinion, and you will agree with me as students of criminology, as a student of law, and sociology, that is a basic foundation of entire criminal justice system. A police investigating officer is expected to carry out the investigation as per the command of the law, without any bias, without any favor, but seldom, in most of the cases, it is not done. Well, I don't want to take your time. You have the example of Jessica Lal's case here in Delhi. You have the example of Priyadarshini Muthu murder case. How the evidence was tailored, how the evidence was fabricated, because there was some pressure on the police. And it has been found in most of the cases, police investigation agencies work under certain pressure. And it is because of this, it is rightly said, that justice in India can be purchased. Then, my dear friends, after this police investigation, the case goes to the court of law. In the court of law, you have on one side the prosecution and on the other side you have defense counsel. As I said, a number of changes have been introduced in the criminal law. Even in certain cases, the basic fundamental of criminal law has been changed, that is the onus of burden of proof. In certain cases of crimes against women, cruelty, dowry death, and many other cases, it has been shifted to that of the accused from prosecution to the defense. But it has been found, I often tell to my students in the classroom, I don't want to mislead them, and I am sure Professor Pandya and Professor Bakshi will correct me, when I tell them that what is the color of this pen?
No.
And I tell to my students, well, in the court of law, it can be proved white or black, despite the fact that it is blue. Because it depends upon the wits of the two parties. It is just like a cricket match going on. If the defense is in a position to make the best runs, good runs, then maybe if a person has committed a crime, there are more chances of his acquittal. On the other hand, if the accused is not in a position to get a good lawyer, engage a good lawyer, there are more chances of his conviction even if he has not otherwise committed a crime. Dr. Trivedi is here, he has worked a lot on the jails. You will find in our Indian jails there is a good chunk of the prisoners for none of their fault. They have not committed crime but have been implicated and finally found their way to the four walls. This is the second part, that is the judicial system, judicial process. Well, here I believe you must have read the cases like Sunil Batra's case, Charles Sobraj's case, and many other cases. And then, of course, of late, Rama Murthy versus State of Karnataka, where in Sunil Batra's case, I believe Justice Krishna Iyer had to say, even if a fraction of what has been alleged in the petition is true, in Sunil Batra and Charles Sobraj's case, we must put our heads down in shame. Well, I will not be in a position to give the details about what was narrated in Sunil Batra's case before the Supreme Court, the transaction going on between the Dons and the Tihar jail authorities at that point of time. You could have the best possible women in the Tihar jail. You could have the best possible meals in the Tihar jail. You had the best possible postal service in the Tihar jail. You had the best possible facilities available within the four walls, provided you as a prisoner were in a position to pay for such services. Well, then after the person has been convicted or a person has been acquitted or whatever it may be the case, when it comes to the final stage about the implementation. You go back to Prakash Singh's case, the former DGP of one of the states who filed a PIL in the Supreme Court regarding the police reforms. Well, most of the states have not carried those reforms despite clear-cut directions of the Supreme Court. Similarly, the direction is given by the Honorable Supreme Court in Rama Murthy's case. For your kind information, those who have not read Rama Murthy's case, Rama Murthy was a law graduate. He was convicted for committing some offense and was lying in Bangalore Central Jail. He wrote a letter to the Honorable Chief Justice from the four walls of the Central Jail, Bangalore, and then certain directions. Of course, after 10 years, he filed a petition, the PIL in 73, and the judgment came somewhere in 1986. Those directions seldom have not been followed anywhere in the country. And thereby this gap between what the laws are and that of implementation promotes the commission of the crime. Well, a criminal knows vicarious theory that what shall be the total sum of the pain and total sum of the pleasure. He knows under our existing criminal justice system there are the rare chances of his conviction, and thereby he is at free, he goes for commission of the crimes. Well, in our case, you might have gone through N.N. Vora's report. N.N. Vora, when he was a cabinet secretary for Home in India, now present governor of J&K state, well, he has written a voluminous report wherein he has mentioned about the nexus between criminals and that of politicians. He has maintained in his report, gone are the days when we used to say that a politician has a nexus with a criminal or criminal syndicate. Now they themselves are criminals and sitting in the parliament or sitting in the state legislatures and ruling the country. Well, you might have gone through one of the surveys conducted by India Today, wherein the figures have been given about the criminal nexus as well as criminal antecedents of various law-making persons in parliament as well as in various state legislatures. They are our lawmakers. And then they control our executive. And maybe with due apology, I must say, people had a faith in the judiciary, but of late, because of certain scams, now finger is also being raised against the judiciary. You may take the example of former Chief Justice of India. He was in the news, whether rightly or wrongly, I don't know, but he was in the news, and that was a case of his type when he left this office of the Chief Justiceship of India. Well, my dear friends, here we go for protests and our parliamentarians respond to our protests. Now there should be a death sentence, there should be a severe punishment, there should be severest possible punishment for the offences against crime. Well, I know what can the pain which the entire India has suffered, which the family of Jyoti Singh, or for that matter any other female or any other family whose daughter or whose sister has been raped. What is the quantum of the pain which one suffers? Well, we have seen in Kashmir what is the pain which is inflicted whenever any modesty of a female is violated. But the problem is, will the severe punishment serve the purpose? That is what worries me. Justice Sachar as well as Professor Pandey. Justice Sachar gave you the statistical analysis of various countries. I will give a simple example of which I remember right from my students' days. It is said at the time of Queen Elizabeth II, the punishment for committing theft was public hanging. And the evidence shows, history of punishment shows, that other like-minded people, other thieves used to get a chance to commit theft when public gathering used to assemble to watch the public hanging of a convicted thief. Which shows deterrent, whatsoever it may be, it has no such a punishment. It is bound to come with the backlash because it has been found, with due apology, in our thinking, in our implementation, in our execution, we are not only selective, we are also secretive. And once we are selective and secretive in our implementation, it is bound to come out with the backlash. Well, dear colleagues, so far as this selectiveness and secretiveness is concerned, as I said, it is bound to come out with the backlash. We have heard from our teachers, law is blind. Law is blind. And if you would like to explain this, it will take you, I think, 4 or 5 lectures. But justice should not be blind. Justice, J-U-S-T-I-C, should not be blind. But to me, in the present scenario, justice is without eye. It is J-U-S-T-C-E, rather J-U-S-T-I-C-E. Because here we are blind when we dispense the justice. When we deliver the justice, we are subjective, we are selective, we are secretive, which is bound to have backlash so far as the commission of the crime is concerned. The basic reason to me, you may not agree with me, Honorable President may not agree with me, is that there is a big gap, there is a long delay in the disposal of the cases. It takes years together. Here in Delhi, you had a case of a captain whose son was murdered, and he got the judgment after 35 years, after he pursued that very case, because somebody had planted a bomb on the door of his son's house, because there was some affair between that very person, the accused person, and his wife and that very person. Well, anyhow, he got justice after 35 years. Well, this long delay is bound to defeat the very basic purpose of the criminal justice system. then we ignore the dignity of victim as well as that of the accused person. That is to be given due regard in the entire criminal justice process. The third point, victim cannot be ignored. Victim's participation in limited way is also required in the criminal justice process. Then really victim compensation, as Professor Chingalingam has done a commendable work on this, victim compensation must be inbuilt. There are some provisions in CRPC, there are some landmark judgments given by the Supreme Court where compensation is given to the victim, but it must be inbuilt in the entire criminal justice system. He must not be or she must not be a forgotten lot. Well, there must be a close coordination. The presiding judge, prosecution and defense counsel. They must be conscious of their job, prosecution and defense counsel. Their only objective is to help the court to arrive at the truth, to arrive at the right conclusion. The prosecution and defense counsel must not hobnob how to make the money. The recent case of one of our learned prosecutors, perhaps of the CBI, just day before yesterday. Well, both must help the court to arrive at the right conclusion. Then only we can come out with the desired results. And of course, the essential requirement, our police, our judiciary, and our legislature, they all are proceeding in three different directions. They all have to meet their heads and proceed only in one direction. And there must be a proper coordination between all the segments of the criminal justice system. And last but not the least, victim has a vital role. I will not say that anybody has any right on the body of anyone. Everyone has a right how to dress. Everyone has a right how to talk, how to walk, how to go to the parties. Yes, everyone has this right. But at the same time, we cannot forget the victim's role. Victim has to be in the present materialistic society careful and has to exercise all the carelessness whenever she moves out, whenever she talks. She has to take everyone, both, one must be here, must be gender free, everyone must take precautions in the present crime world. Delhi is said to be the capital city of India. Every city is a capital city. We must be very cautious, very careful so far as our dealings are concerned. These are some of my submissions. And last but not the least, of course, very, very important, the criminal justice system cannot work in vacuum. There must be a community support. There is a big void between police and the community. Usually, people are afraid of the police. Well, this gap is to be narrowed down. Public at large, community has to support the police, community has to support the victim, and they have to try their best to help the enforcement agencies in getting the clues. Well, if you go to any remote village, or even if you talk about yourself 30 years back, you will find if a crime was committed or if there was a prison of crime in any locality, the entire locality used to show the concern. Now a murder takes place, rape takes place in my neighborhood, in my just next door's neighbor. Well, I don't bother what is going on in my neighbor's house. Well, my dear friends, there is a need for close coordination between all the segments of the criminal justice system as well as between the community and the law enforcement agencies. A number of issues have been raised by Balraj Chavan in his Kumarappa Reckless Award at Bangalore 2009. Then again, Anand Vora in his Kumarappa Reckless Award at Srinagar. Then again, Dr. Trivedi in his Kumarappa Reckless Award lecture at Bombay. And there are so many issues. Well, we have followed our learned teachers, Professor Pandey, Professor Bakshi, Professor Sramurthy, and Professor Pinchandi, and so many others. Now it is your job to take the torch and to lead the nation towards in the right direction. Thank you very much. Thank you all.